Okay, guys, we will start with Jurassic Park Extinction, Joey said. Good, Jack said. After Jack said that, the next thing we know is that Dr. Burton on top of the building. Fools, you think you could really underestimate the beauty of these hybrids? Dr. Burton said as he came down. Really? You can say underestimate your own murder machines when they murder you. The Ian Malcolm representing Jurassic Park yelled. Fool, what do you mean murdered? Dr. Burton asked. He must have pulled out a little bit before he died, I said. Kinda like Spider-Man No Way Home, Marks added. Jack then shot at Dr. Burton with his send-back possibility to send him back to Jurassic Extinction. Jack, do you think you see the switches below that's labeled beacon mode? Joey asked. Yes, Jack replied. Flip them on, aim it, and send it to the sky, then pulled the trigger, Joey told Jack. Then this would create a beacon that should suck all those human hybrid dinosaurs to the beacon, sending them back to Jurassic Extinction, Joey explained. After Joey explained to him about the beacon mode, Jack flipped the switch and aimed it towards the sky. Then the beacon came out and started to suck all the human dinosaur hybrids into it. Alright, we should take care of Mario and Sonic on Quiet Hill, I said. We walked for a bit before being surrounded by demonized Koopas and demonized Wigglers, and all being led by Mary the Hedgehog in her demonic form. I used my send back to shoot Mary and send her back to Mario and Sonic on Quiet Hill. Then I flipped the switch at the bottom and activate beacon mode, put it up to the sky and pulled the trigger. The beacon shot up at the sky and started to suck up every demonized Koopa and Wigglers. Now with that, we both got Jurassic Park Extinction and Mario and Sonic on Quiet Hill out of the way. Let's do Marvel Comics, The Last Hero, Mark said. I think we can handle a rematch, the Punisher said. I think we could use one too, Blade added. Now remember, we have another encounter with a lot of Marvel villains, so be careful, Mark announced. We walked a little bit until we saw Carnage, Crossbows, Kraven the Hunter, Scream, Electro, Sabretooth, Kingpin, Hobogoblin, Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, Hydro Man, Mulk, Magneto, Silver Samurai, Loki, Red Skull, and Dr. Doom. I thought we killed those heroes plus Blade, Carnage said. To be honest, I thought I killed your villainous goons and you as well, Punisher said with a smart remark. Fair enough, I could just kill them again plus you, Carnage said sinisterly. Carnage went to kill Punisher, but before Carnage could kill him, Mark pulled him by using the send back and shot Carnage. Which one of you jerks wants to go back home next? Mark screamed in anger. Crossbones then went to go punch Mark, but fails because Mark shot him with his send back. Then shot Kraven the Hunter, Scream, Electro, and Sabretooth. Before he could send someone else back, he was being attacked by Kingpin. You might have taken out 6 out of 17 of us, but you are a worthless nerd with a stupid toy, Kingpin said, very menacingly to Mark. The Daredevil then jumped and kicked Kingpin in the face, giving Mark enough time to get his send back to shoot Kingpin. Thanks, Daredevil, Mark said. You're welcome, Daredevil said back to him. You fools forgetting something? Hobogoblin said. Okay, Marvel superheroes. We should focus on certain targets, Mark said. Agreed, Spider-Man said. Spider-Man, you will focus on villains like Hobogoblin, Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, and Hydro Man. Avengers, you should fight Modok, Loki, and Red Skull. The X-Men should fight Magneto, and Silver Samurai, and the Fantastic Four and Silver Surfer should fight Dr. Doom and keep them distracted, Mark explained. Me, Blade, and Daredevil will help Spider-Man, Punisher announced. You really think a gun-wielding thing, a vampire hunter, and a ninja will help you, Spider-Man? Green Goblin asked, sinisterly. Well, let's see, Blade said. They fought until they kept with Spider-Man. The villains distracted enough. Mark then would shoot the Hobogoblin, Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, and Hydro Man with a send back, sending them back to the Marvel Comics. The last two heroes, he would do the same with Maud, Duke, Loki, and Red Skull. After the adventures kept them distracted long enough, it took a while for the X-Men to keep Magneto and Silver Samurai distracted long enough, but eventually he shoot them the two as well. "Alright, Doctor Doom is the last one," Mark said. Then he shot Doctor Doom, wrapping up all the villains from the Marvel comics, The Last Hero. "It's my turn now for the villains from 2000s and 2010 movies. Mom, switch me to Transformers." "MERS 2007, Jeff demanded as he was switched to a Transformers, but before we started walking again. We saw depictions like Megatron, Starscream, Scorpionpunk, Devastator, Bone Crusher, Barricade, and Dispenser. Jeff flipped on the beacon mode, and it sucked the Decepticons back to Transformers. "Mom, switch me to Pirates of the Caribbean. Curse of the Black Pearl," Jeff demanded. We walked a little bit until we found Davy Jones. Davy Jones then charged us before Jeff shot him, sending him back to the Pirates of the Caribbean, the Curse of the Black Pearl. "Mom, switch me to the X-Men movies from X-Men to X-Men Origins, Wolverine," Jeff demanded. Then he was switched, and Magneto, Mystique, Toad, Sabretooth, Lady Deathstrike, Juggernaut, and Stryker came. Jeff then activated the beacon mode, and it sucked them to whatever X-Men movies from 2000 to 2009 they were from. "Switch me to Avatar," Jeff demanded. Then he saw Colonel Miles from Quarch, and Jeff shot him back using to send him back to Avatar. "Now switch me back to Star Trek," Jeff demanded. Then we saw Nero from Star Trek. Jeff then shot him and sent him back. "Now switch me to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy," Jeff demanded. Then we saw Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Sandman, and Venom from the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. Jeff would then flip the beacon switch on and suck Sam Raimi Spider-Man villains back to the Spider-Man trilogy. "Now switch me back to Harry Potter." He was then switched to Harry Potter franchise. Then Lord Voldemort, Bellatrix, and Lucius appeared. Then Jeff activated beacon mode and sucked them back to the Harry Potter franchise. "Now switch me to the early years of Marvel Cinematic Universe," Jeff demanded. Then the Obadiah Stane and the Abomination came. Jeff went off ahead and shot the Obadiah Stane, but then the Abomination started running towards us. Jeff then shot Abomination, sending him and Obadiah back to the MCU. "Now switch me to the Lord of the Rings trilogy," Jeff demanded. The Saurons, Saruman, and Wormtail appeared. Frodo, Samwise, Merry Pippin, Aragorn, Boromir, Legolas, Gandalf, and Gimli were thinking they needed to fight. Boromir and the others joined their sides. Kevin then switched to beacon mode yet again, sucked the Saurons, Saruman, and Wormtail back to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. "Now switch me to the first two movies in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy," Jeff demanded. Then Ra's al Ghul, Scarecrow, Heath Ledger's Joker, and Two-Face showed up. He had already captured one out of the four, but accidentally forgot Scarecrow. Scarecrow then sprayed me with his gas and made me see my own fears. I was then back in the base in my Uncle Jim's dead body. Then Rose. "Jim?" I asked, in confusion. "You let me die," this version of my uncle said. Then he tries to break my spirit, saying that he could have survived if I hadn't gotten in the way. "You're not real," I said in tears. "Get out of my head," I yelled, before finding myself where I was with Joey, Jeff, Toby, Mark, and Jack. "It's okay, Scarecrow is gone now. Jeff sent them back to Batman Begins," Joey explained to me. "But right now we have a lot more to deal with," Jeff explained. "Switch me to Saw," Jeff demanded. Then Billy the Puppet showed up riding his tricycle. "I want to play a game," Billy the Puppet said. "I do too. It's called Go Back to Where You Came From," Jeff said. Then he shot Billy the Puppet and sent him back to Saw. "Now switch me to Taken," Jeff demanded. Then Marco Hexa then walked toward us, pointing his gun at us. Jeff then shot him and sent him back to Taken. "Now switch me to 3000, Jeff demanded. Then the Exorcist showed up. Then Jeff shot him, sending him back to 300. "Switch me to American Psycho, now," Jeff demanded. Patrick Bateman was wearing his headphones, listening to Hip Hop Square by Huey D. Lewis. And then News walked towards us with his axe. Then he swung at us just before Jeff shot him, sending him back to his American People, or American Psycho. "Now, switch me to Unbreakable," Then Jalila Price came in towards us. Jeff shot him, sending him back to Unbreakable. Now switch me to the ring, Jeff demanded. Then we hear a place full of TVs and saw Samara crawl out of one of the TVs. Jeff then shot her, sending back to the ring. Now switch me to V for Vendetta, Jeff demanded. Adam Stutler just came walking towards us, pointing his gun at us. Then Jeff shot him, sending back to V for Vendetta. Now switch me to Gladiator, Jeff demanded. Marcus then found us and pulled us his sword and charged towards us. Jeff then shot him, sending back to Gladiator. Now switch me to Cloverfield, Jeff demanded. Then the Clovers found us, but Jeff flipped the beacon mode switch, sucked all the Clovers back to Cloverfield. Now switch me to Ocean's 1, Jeff demanded. Then Terry Benedict pointed his gun, but of course Jeff shot him and sent him back to Ocean's 11. We've been switched to Kill Bill Volume 1, where we saw Oren Shinzi jumping out with her sword, and Jeff just shot her in time and sent her back to Kill Bill Volume 1. Now switch me to 28 Days Later, Jeff demanded. The infected started walking towards us, but when Jeff flipped the beacon mode on, it sucked all the infected back into 28 Days Later. Now switch me to the Monetary Report, Jeff demanded. Then Lamar Burgress pointed the gun at us, but Jeff shot him, sending him back to the Monetary Report. Ballon d'Or Trilogy, Jeff demanded. The Ken Krill and Noah Vonson had to attack, but Jeff shot all 3 of them, sending them back to the Bourne Trilogy. Casino Royale, Jeff demanded. Then the villains came, but Jeff would shoot them, sending them back to where they came from. How about you switch me into something from the 2010s, Jeff said through his headphones. The next thing we knew, every villain from MCU movies from Ford to Spider-Man Far From Home were there. And just like that, Justin Hammer and a lot of other villains all were surrounding us. Jeff then flipped the beacon mode switch, sucked all the Marvel villains back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Blade Runner, 2049, Jeff demanded. Then, Jeff did the same thing and sending them back to Blade Runner 2049. Bridge of Spies, Jeff demanded. Then James B. Donovan was there, but Jeff shot him, sending him back to Bridge of Spies. Now, switch me to Bumblebee, Jeff demanded. The Shatter charged towards us. While he jumped at us, Jeff shot him, sending him back to his own universe. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Jeff said. Then Cobra started firing his machine gun at us, but Jeff shot him, sending him back to his movie. Edge of Tomorrow, Jeff added. Then the Omega then showed up, and Jeff used his beacon mode to send the Omega back to the Edge of Tomorrow. X-Men movies, Jeff demanded. Then Silver Samurai Apocalypse. But of course, everyone else approached us, but Jeff used his beacon mode and sent them back to the X-Men movies. Mad Max Fury Road, Jeff demanded. All those villains from the movie showed up, but of course, Jeff shot them and sent his car and him back to Mad Max. Mission Impossible 5 and 6, Jeff demanded. Jeff did the same to those villains from the movie. Mission Impossible 5 and 6. A Quiet Place, Jeff demanded. The aliens from another world showed up and charged towards us. Jeff then shot them back and sent them back to A Quiet Place. DCEU movies, from Man of Steel to Shazam, Jeff called out. Then General Zod, Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor, an entire squad from the S Squad from 2016 movie, Jared Leto, Joker, Ares, Stephen Wolf, Black Manta, Thaddeus Savannah surrounded us. Jeff then used beacon mode, sucking them all back into the DCEU movies, from Man of Steel to Shazam. Skyfall, Jeff said. Raul Sylvia was there, but Jeff would shoot him, send him back to Skyfall. Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, Jeff said. The Lizard and Electro then approached us, but when Jeff fired the both of them, he sent them back to the Amazing World of Spider-Man 1 and 2. Star Wars sequel trilogy, Jeff demanded. Next thing we know, we saw all those Star Wars villains they're about to attack us. Jeff would then activate beacon mode and send them back to the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Dark Knight Rises, Jeff demanded. Then Bane charged at us, but Jeff shot him, sending him back to his universe. You did great, Jeff, but now it's my turn to send movie characters back, Joey said. Let's start in the 70s. Let's start with Mad Max, Joey said. Then Toe Cutter charged at us on his motorcycle. Joey would shoot him and then send him back to Mad Max. Superman, Joey said. We saw Lex Luthor shot him, sending him back to Superman. Now switch me to Dirty Harry, Joey said. Scorpio pointed his gun at us, but Joey shot him, sending him back to Dirty Harry. Switch me to Carrie, Joey said. Then Carrie would try to use her telenaked powers on us, but Joey would shoot her, sending her back to Carrie. Dawn of the Dead, Joey said. We saw the zombies walking towards us, but Joey activated his beacon mode on them, sending them back to the Dawn of the Dead. Now switch me to Monty Python and the Holy Grail, Joey said. Then the French taunter would taunt us before he was shot by Joey, being sent back to Monty Python and the Holy Grail. The Exorcist, now, Joey said. Then Reagan jumped out, but just as Joey shot her, sending her back to the Exorcist. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Joey said. Then Leatherface charged at us with chainsaw, but of course Joey shot him, sending him back to his movie. Now switch me to Halloween, Joey said. Michael Myers would try to chase us down, but Joey would shoot him, sending him back to the Halloween. Now switch me to Alien, Joey said. Then the Xenomorph would appear. Before it could pounce on us, Joey shot it and sent it back to Alien. Now switch me to Jaws, Joey said. We started walking a bit, but we passed by a pool before the shark from Jaws lunging out at us. Joey walked towards the pool and shoot the shark to send him back to Jaws. Star Wars A New Hope, Joey said. Then Darth Vader would turn on his lightsaber and walk towards us. Luke Skywalker had to fight him to keep him distracted. When Joey would shoot Darth Vader, sending him back to Star Wars A New Hope. Now switch me to Godfather, Joey said. We then saw people from The Godfather, the villains. So then Joey would shoot him, sending him back to The Godfather. Now we got the characters from the 70s, to back to where we belong. Let's focus on the 80s characters, Joey said. Let's go to the Return to Oz, Joey said. Then the Gnome King would show up, stomping towards us. Joey shot the Gnome King and sent him back to the Return to Oz. Friday the 13th, Joey said. Jason would start to chase after us, but Joey would have sent him back to Friday the 13th. Switch me to Willow, Joey said. When Queen Bavamorda and her knights found us. Guards! Seize those fools! The queen yelled in anger. Yes, your highness, and we will execute them, the guard said. As the guard said that, Joey activated beacon mode, sucking Queen Bavamorda and her knights back to Willow. Beetlejuice, Joey said. We see Beetlejuice and then Joey shot him, sending him back to the movie he came from. The Lost Boys, Joey said. Then David and the other vampires from Lost Boys, excluding Michael Emerson, star and the child vampire, Joey activated the beacon mode, sucking the vampires back into Lost Boys. The Karate Kid, Joey said. Then we saw John Kreese, Johnny Lawrence, and other students of the Cobra Kai. Joey would activate his beacon mode on to suck on all those students of Cobra Kai back to the Karate Kid. Little Shop of Horrors, Joey said. The plant monsters then show up, but then Joey activated the beacon mode, sending them back to Little Shop of Horrors. Indiana Jones trilogy, Joey said. All the villains from the Indiana Jones trilogy appeared, but Joey shot all three of them, sent them back to that trilogy. Lethal Weapon, Joey said. That Peter McAllister and his goons surrounded us. All of his goons, including themselves, had guns pointed at us, but luckily Joey was able to switch the beacon, sending Peter McAllister and his goons back to Lethal Weapon. Batman, 1989, Joey said. Then we see Joker and his henchmen. Joey would activate beacon mode and send all of Joker and his goons back to the original Batman movie from 1989. Star Wars Episodes 5 and 6, Joey said. Then the villains from Star Wars Episodes 5 and 6 would appear, but of course, Joey would send them back to those weapons with beacon mode. Switch us to gremlins, Joey said. Then all the gremlins, being led by a Stripe, charged at us, but luckily, Joey activated beacon mode and sent all the gremlins back to gremlins. RoboCop, Joey said. Then we saw Ed 209 approach us, and then Joey would shoot the remaining Robobot, sending him back to RoboCop. Now switch me to Nightmare on Elm Street, Joey said. We then see Freddy Krueger chasing after us. Luckily, Joey would shoot him, sending him back to Nightmare on Elm Street. Goonies, Joey said. Then we went to all the Fratells, and then Joey shot all 3 of them, sending them back to the Goonies. Predator, Joey said. The Predator would chase after us, but luckily Joey would shoot him, sending him back to Predator. Now switch me to Evil Dead 2, Joey said. Then the next thing we knew, we were surrounded by deadies. Luckily, Joey would activate beacon mode, sucking all the enemies back to Evil Dead. Die Hard, Joey said. Then we saw that Hans Gruber had his gun pointed at us, but Joey would shoot him, sending him back to his universe. The Shining, Joey said. We see Jack Torrance run towards us with an axe. But of course, Joey ended up shooting him to send him back to his own universe. Now switch me to Ghostbusters, Joey said. Then we saw ghosts like the library ghost, Slimer, and etc., all with their other ghosts. Joey would activate beacon mode and send them back to Ghostbusters. Now switch me to Back to the Future, Joey said. Then we see Biff point a gun at us. What are you looking at, buttheads? Biff yelled at us. Before Biff could say anything else, Joey would shoot him, sending him back to the future. Now switch me to Highlander, Joey said. Then the Kurgan then found us and pulled us out with a sword, but Joey would shoot him, sending him back to Highlander. Spaceballs! We would find Lord Helmet, and Joey would shoot him, sending him back to Spaceballs. Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai! Joey yelled. Then we saw Lord John Warfen. Joey would shoot him and send him back to his movie. The Last Starfighter, Joey said. She shot the villain from that movie, sending him back to The Last Starfighter. Switch me to Tron, Joey said. Then the Abraxas would appear. Joey would shoot him and send him back to his movie. Labyrinth, Joey said. Then Jared would appear singing. Joey would then shoot him, sending him back to his movie. Can you switch me to Commando now? Joey said. Then Bennett had a gun pointed at us, but of course Joey would shoot him, sending him back to Commando. Now switch me to Escape from New York, Joey said. We did that, and Joey sent the other villains back. We went to They Live, shot the villains, and of course we shot the villains from a lot of other ones. But of course the blue aliens would now be back to where they live. The Polidrus, we shot the villains back from there with those guns we have. We also did the same with Little Trouble in Little China. Scarface, we did the same. But of course, when Tony Montana is shooting people who haven't been evacuated yet, he had his machine gun and saw us. Say hello to my little friend, Tony yelled before Joey shot him. Before sending him back, he looked. The never-ending story, Joey said. We then saw nothing, but of course there was nothing back into the never-ending story. Now switch me to Blade Runner. We did the same for Blade Runner, then we also did the same to The Thing. After we did all that, we went to the final of the 80s movies, such as the villains from The Princess Bride. Now that we're done with the 80s movies, let's move on to the 1990 movies, Joey said. Now switch me to Men in Black. When we switch him to the Men in Black, the evil aliens from it would appear, and Joey would send them back to Men in Black. Home Alone, Joey said. We did the same to Home Alone. The Matrix, Joey said, and we sent all the agents from the Matrix back to their movie. Jurassic Park, Joey said. We saw the dinosaurs, and we ended up shooting them with the guns. But of course, we got them back to their own movies. Switch me to the old Mortal Kombat movie, Joey said. Then we transported Shang Tsung, Goro, Kano, Reptile, Scorpion, Sub-Zero back to their old movie. The Fifth Element, Joey said. We did the same thing with those movies. Demolition Man, we also did the same. The Crow, we also did the same. But of course, we did more like sending villains back there, especially to Braveheart, or Need to Speed, and etc. We've been doing pretty good, and we shot all the villains from those movies. There were so many to count, so I'll just spare the details. Now switch me to our final 90s movies, Joey said. We start off with Scream, and then Ghostface came out, but we shot him back to his own universe. We also did the same thing, focus on the Tim Burton movie trilogy. First we start off with Oogie Boogie, Lord Barkus, and Vampire Mr. Whiskers goes back to their own universe, as well as back to the Nightmare Before Christmas. We walked a little bit, but of course, first we found out the zombies from Mario and Sonic Dead House Saga. But of course, they also saw the giant zombie from Return to the Dead House. We all took them back and we put them back in the carnage. When I flipped the switch to activate beacon mode, all the zombies, including the giant zombie, that's good, but we need Oliver and Samantha, Harry, George, Noah, and Olivia, I said. When we see Harry, George, Noah, and Olivia come out of Matt's house, "Where's Oliver?" I asked in anger. "Oh, he's there, but you'll have to go through us," Harry said. After Harry said that, I shot him and sent him back to Mario and Sonic, Adventures Through the Dead House. "Oh crap, he killed Harry," George said. I then saw George sending him back to his game. Then Noah and Olivia started to charge at me. I would then shoot Olivia, sending her back to the game. "Enough!" Noah yelled. "No," I said, before shooting him, sending him back to Mario and Sonic, Adventures Through the Dead House. "Just got 2 more left," I said. Then we walked inside to find Matt, Tom, Samantha, and the one I've been waiting to get revenge on, Oliver.